Greetings, Alfred, and everybody on the panel and the audience. Welcome to another show today. And we're doing a press conference today to cover, basically, to end the racist, institutional racism, targeting, torture, and terrorism and murder of royal people. Basically, we people of color worldwide. As everybody knows, there's been a lot of talk about us Black people in the media with Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matters. There's a lot of questions around Black Lives Matters. And, you know, the horrific abuse that we've received for centuries is now finally coming to the spotlight. So we're holding this press conference today with some amazing, amazing people, some prestigious guests, wonderful brothers and sisters. And so I'm going to allow everybody to take a few minutes to introduce themselves, and then we're going to start this press conference with the view to ending institutional racism of our people worldwide. Thank you, Alfred. I have to start with you, actually, Alfred. Thank you so much for allowing us to have this panel.
Oh, well, it's my privilege to be here, and I'm looking forward to the outcome of this, and from an exopolitical point of view, which is my perspective, and from the perspective of international law and the International Criminal Code. I believe that an international legal hearing should be held on the issue of race-based genocide and race-based crimes against humanity, so that the standards are set, and so that the underlying matrix can be held accountable according to the International Criminal Code, standards of natural law, and standards of social law. So that's my position on it.
Thank you, Alfred. And thank you to all the guests, and thank you to everybody at home. And I want to introduce our guests one by one, and I would like to start with the wonderful, legendary, iconic sister Sophia Stewart, who is, everybody knows, is the creator of the masterpiece that has changed the world as far as paradigm shift has concerned. She is the mother of the Matrix and the Terminator movies. Greetings, Sophia. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, and I gotta make a correction because Mother of the Matrix is a tagline,
Right.
like rappers identify with their brand. No, I'm the creator and owner of the Matrix and Terminator movie or film franchises. Owner by copyrights. It's a fact. I won my court case in 2014. 6 years ago, it's been blacking out, and that's the reason why I'm on here also, is because of the horrible racial and gender discrimination that has been against me and the blackouts of it. And this, I think, is going to be a very, very important interview for me, because I've been trying to speak on this platform for a long time, and people have been avoiding it. And I just did an iHeartRadio show a week ago, and hip-hop radio show not too long with Chuck D. And it's horrible. You know, they say to me, Black Lives Matter. And I said, and it didn't matter before? It never mattered before? You know, this is a fact. And I told them, you know, when you look at Rodney King and you look at, the policeman's, knee on the black guy's neck, and that's another form of lynching, another form of hanging. And I do want to, come back. I'm just going to give my little introduction now, but I want to come back and talk in terms. And I think that God set this up because this is very impromptu for me, but it's very, very important. And I really would like to speak on it, but I'm going to get off. I just want to give this little introduction. Sophia Stewart, written several books. They're out there on the platforms. Get them. The Matrix, you're going to get more Matrix. But I'm the creator and owner of Matrix and Terminator film franchises. And I'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you, my sister. Thank you for giving that powerful introduction, and we'll hear from you later. Okay, so we're basically saying hello, greetings again to Sister Kemet from Stop the Silence. Greetings, Sister Kemet.
Greetings, sis, and thank you for having me. Thank you also to Alfred for hosting, as usual. I know this one's going to be a whopper, as usual. And give thanks to the Most High and to our ancestors on whose backs I stand. I'm part of an organisation called Stop the Silence, which, although people's trying to label it as the same as Black Lives Matter now, we've just fallen into that category. I don't know why people's put us in that category, but we're not. We're about stopping the silence on everything, not just about Black Lives Mattering, but on everything. Like Sister Seven's whole issue, Sister Sophia Stewart's whole issue, anybody's, as well as the negatives, the positives as well. So we stop the silence about every and anything. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, sis. And greetings to, I have to come to Sister Kandance, who's been on the show before. Greetings, my sister. How are you, Kandance?
Greetings, Seven. I'm fine. Thank you so much. I've got to greet everybody on the panel. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know. Of course, maximum respect out to Alfred for hosting and providing the platform. Thank you. For those of you who I don't know, Natalie, I'm meeting for the first time. Clive Morris, yes, lovely to see you. I've seen your name often, but we've never met. It's a very powerful panel that we have here to discuss this huge topic. And as Kemet said, I give thanks to the Most High and to the ancestors that made it possible for us to stand on their shoulders and see the wider vision of the works that we have to do to defend our people, to play our part. Yeah.
Yes.
And I give thanks for the platform. So
just a bit about yourself, Kandance.
So my name's Sister Kandance, and I am a talk show host and a radio DJ. I am also the previous chair or a prior chair to a BAME staff network in a rather large NHS trust. I helped establish it and then went on to chair it for a couple of years.
Can you just explain what BAME is for those who've never heard?
Black African, sorry, I get so used to acronyms and things. Black, African, Asian and minority ethnic. So diversity, inclusion, my focus is on racial equality or racial inequality, exposing the inequalities that exist within the workplace, primarily around people from ethnic minorities. I'm most concerned with Black people and the racial disparities that we face in the workplace that prevent us from achieving, whether it be our career goals, whether it's training, whether it's bullying and harassment that cause us to fail, and to give us an equal right to have access to learning and to excel ourselves, to have fair representation by our management, to be treated fairly and equally in the workplace. My organization deals with setting up staff networks and training people, Black staff, on how to run staff networks. And also, we also have a program for employers, to teach them about cultural awareness, emotional intelligence, and how to better provide a more equal and equitable workplace for their diverse workforce.
Thank you so much. And you want to talk a little bit, you've been working in the hospital with midwives, is that right?
Oh yeah, I've worked in maternity for about 6-7 years, and of course there is a disproportionate number, or I wouldn't even say that, there is certainly a number of issues that affect Black women, not only through the gynecology processes, like fibroids. There's data that provides evidence that Black women are more susceptible to maternal deaths during their pregnancies, and these things really should not be happening. These issues need to be addressed, because when you look at the amount of people of color who actually work in the healthcare service, or you look at the amount that the people of color who are in our communities, there should be adequate resources and support services within the NHS, within the healthcare systems, to support these women through their pregnancy, and to put in place the necessary treatments and support networks to help them deal with the issues that they're facing, on the challenges that they're facing through these pregnancies. I mean, you've got cultural differences, which is where the cultural awareness and appreciation comes from. Especially when it comes to some of our sisters who have come from abroad as immigrants and may not have English as their first language.
Okay. Well, thank you, sis. We're going to hear more from you. We just want to do a little introduction just to give people an overview. Thank you. It's so important so that people can get a feel for what everybody does, because we're trying to cover a wide spectrum today. Okay. So we've been joined by Sister Rose Cannon. Is that right? Are you there? Can you hear us, Rose?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yes. We're going to come to you. We're just doing the introductions. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
We'll come to you shortly. We've just heard from Sophia. Stewart is on the panel. We've heard from Kemet of Stop the Silence, and we've just had the introduction from Kandance, who is a talk show host and has worked setting up Black and Asian and African minority groups, training and etc. And so we're going to hear from our other guests right now. So we want to hear from, if that's okay, we can hear from Natalie. Hello, Natalie.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you? Long time.
Well, all things considered, yeah.
Right, so if you want to just explain who you are, give people a short overview, just a minute's overview if you can, and then we can go on to Brother Clyde, and then we'll hear from Rose. Hopefully we'll still hear from Lawrence, and we still have Stephen Ssali, who's coming on with us shortly. So go ahead, Natalie.
Okay, well, I'm Natalie Moore. I'm an author of a book called Remote Control. I'm what is referred to as a targeted individual, although I prefer the term a victim of non-consensual human experimentation, which disproportionately affects a lot of Black women that I have been in touch with. I believe this issue is of particular importance at the moment, what with the COVID vaccine about to be introduced. It's a multi-faceted social engineering program, which consists of surveillance, stalking, harassment, and also, you know, as well as the psychological warfare, there's also technological aspects to it too. So it's of the utmost importance to sort of share this information so people are aware. You're on mute at the moment, Seven.
Sorry. Just thank you, Natalie. And for anybody who wants to find Natalie's book while we're talking, you can go onto Amazon, and it's called Remote Control by Natalie Moore, and that's on Amazon. I recommend that everybody purchase this book and actually see what is happening behind the closed corridors of surveillance companies in the UK and across the world, particularly directed to us as a people. So thank you, Natalie. We're going to hear in depth from you shortly, but we're going to move on to Brother Clive. Can everybody mute their microphones while Brother Clive speaks? Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, good evening, panel. Thank you again for providing us with your company, your life experience. Now, my name's Clive Morrison. I consider myself to be a community activist. Sorry about that. Another duty call. Yeah, I consider myself to be a community activist. I've been a former councillor, so I've engaged in local politics, and I have been what do you say? I've been experiencing what we consider being institutional racism almost all my life. I've been traveled here from the West Indies. My main concern, the area being more preoccupied in, is death in custody. I'm a radio show host, and I continue at the grassroots to engage with my community on issues which obviously is what this program is about today: institutional racism and how it disproportionately interacts into our life and affects our social well-being. So I'm very much looking forward to the discussion and to how we're going to find solutions in order to address what is presently happening. I am presently also aware of the Black Lives Matters, and as Seven had said, how is it suddenly this is at the forefront of everybody's minds thinking. So for myself, it's about us liberating our mindset and how we can educate our fellow colleagues to change their mindset and to take ourselves out of our present situation and to deal with what we need to deal with, which is to promote harmony amongst all races. So I'm open to the debate, this discussion, but yeah, my journey goes back so far from the Roland Adams campaign to Stephen Lawrence, who I so happen to share the birth date with. So I've not been able to divorce myself away from racism, because ever so often when it raises its head, I'm always reminded. I've got an event coming up shortly, which I will expand on later on, which is again another young man that was killed within our community. So the battle continues, and no doubt what is said amongst ourselves will, I hope, strengthen each one of us as to the battle ahead that is still to be met. I hope that's given a bit of an insight. Everyone is mute.
Apologies, I was talking where you couldn't hear me. But just to emphasize, you were a Labour councillor in Edmonton. Was it between 92 and 2002?
No, from
99.
98 to 2002. It's a 4-year term.
Okay, so you were the Labour councillor in the borough of Edmonton.
London Borough of Enfield.
Oh, right, the London Borough of Enfield between 90, did you say 98?
To 2002.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. I just wanted to flag that up, just so people will get a perspective of the diversity of this panel, and we're all coming from completely different perspectives. Okay, so now we're going to go to you, Rose. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. So can you give a brief introduction about yourself and what it is that you do?
Sure. I'm really honored to be on this panel. I am not nearly as experienced as all you folks are. I'm from the United States, and I am an African-American woman in my early 70s. So I need to tell you my age so you know the perspective that I'm coming from. I have just opened a small Afrocentric gallery, art gallery, here in Evanston, Illinois. And Evanston is the suburb directly touching Chicago on the north. And so we have tremendous experience with the city of Chicago, as well as the suburban type of living that we do here. My family has been in this town from the early 1900s. My grandmother witnessed the release from slavery. She's now dead. Everybody's long gone. I'm the oldest of my generation left. Essentially, I wanted to start a gallery, an art gallery, because our African American or people of color are very underrepresented in the art world, and specifically here in this suburb, which is home to Northwestern University and a big international community. Many people of color don't even frequent the galleries or feel welcome in the galleries. So it was my idea to start a gallery and where I would feature persons of color who were doing art. As I began to incept my gallery, I had a lot of white people approach me and really interrogate me. So, well, why do you want to have a gallery that is only accentuating Black people? And I found myself at a defense for this, and I felt ashamed. And this was before we witnessed. This was before we witnessed the killing of George Floyd and Breonna and you know, on our media. And these white people felt comfortable enough to challenge why I would open a gallery that only focused on my people. And I felt uncomfortable. And like this was maybe about 6 months ago or 6 or 8 months ago, before all of this Black Lives Matter and all of this stuff going on in the media, showing our people being killed by the racist police. And now what's happened in my soul is that I'm now able to tell them, yes, it is going to be a gallery featuring people of color, and I'm not ashamed of it. And I'm ready for the white people who are going to tell me, but that's racist, isn't it? That you would exclude us. And yes, it is racist. It is racist. And I will describe myself as an anti-racist. I'm very militant and also a reparationist. And I'm on all the committees here in this city that support that. And at this time, we have our lovely little show, which they gave us the first floor gallery of this all-white gallery who wants to be supportive of the movement for Black Lives Matter. They gave us a chance to do our show there. And I'm thankful to them, but I'm also seeing that some of it is disingenuous. It's like I'm not believing what they've done, and I'm afraid that when our show closes on Sunday, that might be the end of it. But I don't know if that explains it or not. But I've had experience with being racially profiled all of my 72 years in this lifetime. I have 2 adult sons who have experienced the racial profiling directly. I now have 4 grandchildren, and I'm hoping that they will be able to grow up a little bit easier than we did.
Thank you.
I want to tell you one thing. I worked 40 years inside of our federal government, and I experienced the racism that was so difficult that I just thought it was a natural way of life. That's what it was. So I hope I've explained who I am a little bit. I'm a little bit nervous. Okay.
You're amongst friends and family, so don't be nervous. You're very, very most welcome to join us, and your voice is so necessary. Oh, we're so grateful to have you on the panel, and I thank you, because it's really good to have somebody that is older, who's seen a lot more than some of us younger people like Alfred. You know, we honor you. We have great respect for your journey, and I cannot, can't be more grateful for you to be on here with us. So thank you for that beautiful introduction. Now we do have 2 other people that are supposed to be with us. We have Brother Lawrence, who is a writer. He's a singer-songwriter. He's a musician. He's a poet. Powerful poet, powerful writer. He's an historian, and he brings some powerful truths to the table, and his is another incredibly important voice that we're hoping to hear today as well. I'm going to call him in a minute, but what we'll do is we'll start anyway, but we have also Dr. Ssali, Stephen Ssali, who is another incredibly important, powerful voice. We had him on our other press conference, COVID Gate. I think it was our first COVID Gate press conference. And his insight to healing and just the holistic way of life, well-being, health and well-being. And also, he spoke a lot to the whole ascension process and awakening as a humanity to the golden age, you know. And, you know, I wanted to hopefully hear from him. Now, Kandance says that he has come on and said that he will be with us shortly. Now, myself, as everybody knows, I'm 7 and I'm a concepts innovator. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother. I'm an advocate of truth, love, peace. Like Natalie, I am, and like all of you, in fact, I am classified as a targeted individual because I was targeted for my creative material, and I fought a case against 10 individuals and corporations, and I won a massive case for my work, which is very well known across the world. Dancing with Stars, You Are What You Eat, 10 Years Younger. It's a whole catalogue of work of which they've stolen and they've tried to kill me for. And I've spent 17 years being terrorized in the UK because of this work. I've seen members of my family die in under horrific circumstances. My cousin, Ronnie Nicholas, was poisoned and died in front of me in 2019. Anybody wants to see my cousin and I, you can go onto my channel, Solutionaries Media Network, which is on YouTube. If you scroll down to about probably the end of last year, beginning of this year, you'll see, no, end of last year, sorry, the beginning of 2019. 2019, yes. Then you'll see myself and my cousin talking about my case. He was going to sue for his image being wrongly used in relation to Grenfell Tower, and he was murdered. And people at, well, somebody I knew, my ex, told me that such a thing was going to happen. He made me aware that my cousin had to be gotten out of the way because of, there's been a lot of people fighting over my estate to control the money from my estate. And Rose, do you mind muting your microphone, please? Can you do that, please, Rose? Rose, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you mute your microphone, please? There's a little bit of noise. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm, you know, I think my journey has been 17 years, and it has brought me through the judiciary over the last 17 years, and I've had the ability to look at the situation from all aspects. I want to say that we are royal people, we're a dignified people, and we have been forced to take on, we got another guest. Greetings, brother. I just finished what I was saying. Thank you for being able to come on. I just finished my sentence, and then you'll be able to introduce yourself. Yeah, I was basically just saying that we are a royal people, and we've been forced to remove our majestic royal garments, dignified garments, and wear the garments of exploitation, poverty, oppression, abuse. These are the garments that we've been forced to wear. And we are coming forward today and throwing down those garments of exploitation and poverty and fear, oppression. You know, there's so many of our people that are being terrorized. I would say every melanated person alive today knows somebody who's been murdered and that hasn't had justice. They've either been a family member or a friend, or, you know, been murdered in a horrific way, and they have not received justice. I would say that's all around, right across the globe, around the world. You know, we have contributed the most as far as innovation in the world. You know, as far as our contribution has been humongous. We have, you know, we continue to be brutalized, terrorized, with people brutalize us with impunity. You know, it's basically a free-for-all situation. We have currently in the US, we've heard of police protesting because they can't chokehold us anymore. You know, this is where we are. How did we get here? How are we here? You know, I have to give a lot of thanks to Alfred. 1 second, sister, for saying that we did this show. I actually sent Alfred. It was a WhatsApp message that was going around saying that black men were to be lynched and to warn everybody because it was lynching season. And then Alfred said, I think we should do a show about this. So I have to give big props to Alfred for the suggestion, because I think it's a very important press conference that we're holding today. And I would like to actually say that I would like to invite people who are racist onto our next panel, people who are targeting us. We would like people from the intelligence agencies to join us. people from institutional racist organizations to come forward, and after this press conference to listen to it and imagine yourself in our shoes and how we have been dehumanized and made to live for decades, centuries. You know, all of our leaders who try to come forward and speak on our behalf are murdered. And so, you know, we like to invite you to a very mature, very respectable conversation and hear your truth of why you think that we are not entitled to the same rights as yourself and the same privileges and the same freedoms and fundamental rights as you have. I invite anybody to come on to this, and that's where we'd like to take this press conference, so that we can open the dialogue, we can share some of the truths of what we're experiencing as human beings, and give you right of reply so that you can come forward and say why you think that we should be terrorized, brutalized, murdered, and, you know, exploited, enslaved, chipped. You know, we'd like to give you the opportunity to express why you think that we don't have any rights to the life that the Most High Creator gave us. So I want to start with that. So I want to introduce our brother, beautiful brother, Stephen Ssali. Greetings, greetings. I can see that you're in a busy environment. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you hear me okay? Can you unmute yourself, brother, please? It's at the corner. It's at the right hand, bottom left corner of the, yes, you've got it. How are you? You made it?
I'm well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you again. I'm so sorry. I got our timings a little bit mixed up because
okay.
Earlier,
can you do me a favor, brother? Can you move your chair or move your device so that you're in the center? Sorry, I'm a Virgo. I just want the way I am. Sorry. Okay, thank you, brother. Now we can see you properly. Thank you. So if you want to give people a brief introduction about yourself, just a minute, just for about a minute, and then we'll be able to hear from you as we open the dialogue.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Stephen Ssali. I'm a nutritionist and also a holistic therapist. We have set up a foundation called the Marine Research Foundation that was set up by my father, Professor Ssali, who was a researcher in both Western and traditional herbal medicine. And he has actually brought together this range of supplementation after doing research, and also has created a way of actually healing diseases by using nutritional supplements, and treated over 18,000 patients with an 80% success rate. And
hang on, brother. Sorry, I can hear singing in the background.
Ah, okay. Let me.
Is it where you are?
Yeah, it's where I am, because let me go to a private place and I'll call you straight.
No, just take it.
Oh, yeah. Is it disturbing you, brother? I mean, how is everybody about it? I can hear it. I'm just wondering.
No, right, let me get to a quiet place. It's just that I was in the move when I just stopped somewhere. And
okay, apologies everybody, but I was hearing the singing was kind of obstructive. So I mean, I didn't want what he's saying to be reduced in any way, so I thought it was wise to just let people know that we were hearing singing. Okay, so how do we want to do it now? Alfred, I would like to start with you, because you have had such an iconic, legendary past. You are such a legend that, you know, people don't know how much work you have done, and your work with the Panthers, you ordering the investigations of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. You are an icon, and I'm saying this because it's the truth. It's the truth. And so I would like to start with you and give you the opportunity to share some of your great monumentous achievements with the panel and everybody out there today. Thank you, Alfred. I should say Judge Alfred.
Well, thank you very much, Seven. I didn't know that I was going to speak, but I'm very honored that you asked me. I really have done so as the member of a team and in the company of others, and I guess moved so as to secure and vouchsafe justice, people's rights, and what could occur. And this began in New York. Well, not began, but one of the early points that I went forward in my own awakening. I remember it was early on when I would read about the quote, Minister of Defense of the Black Panthers. This was in the late 60s when I was a lawyer, a young lawyer in New York with an international firm. And he would be giving speeches in parks in New York over the weekend. And I thought that was very interesting because here was an organization that was looking out for the entire community, all of its, sort of holistically a community, and was not at all the stereotype that the government was attempting to project onto them. And so as what they call a cooperating attorney with the New York Civil Liberties Union, at that time, I became of counsel when the United States government and the FBI brought a false suit, a false prosecution against the Black Panthers, accusing them of a conspiracy to blow up the Statue of Liberty in New York. And that case was so flimsy that the jury dismissed it within just a couple of hours. But it was an effort by the government to destroy any organization that would be formed to give legitimacy to the community needs of the nation within the United States that had been brought over in contravention to natural law, to social law, to international law, in response to very deep social and I would say Luciferic forces that were behind the slave trade and that used that to create economically nations and fortunes using the labor and the soul incarnations of the African people. And then I went on to be Representative Henry B. Gonzalez, who was the chairman of the House of Representatives Banking Committee, asked me to consult with him in starting the House Select Committee on Assassinations to investigate the assassinations of John and Robert Kennedy and Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And with the assistance of Dr. King's widow, Coretta Scott King, and the Congressional Black Caucus, we got that committee started in the US Congress. And this was the first official opening of all of those assassinations. And later, within the last 2 years, with investigator Ola Damagard, will be doing a program within the next 2 weeks again. But Ola Damagard is a Swedish investigator who lives in Spain. We broadcast an investigation of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King and of Malcolm X. We saw that this was done by the military establishment of the United States. The shooters in the Martin Luther King case were U.S. Army sharpshooters, a team of U.S. Army sharpshooters. So he was executed in this setup. And there were many infiltrators. I won't get into any of the details because it's highly controversial, but they were infiltrators from the very African community who betrayed Dr. King and set him up for that. And Malcolm X was assassinated by the CIA. This is a condition, I believe, that goes back to goes very back, of course, to Babylon, goes back to the Illuminati, goes back to the East India Company, and now that is why I think that there has to be, at the international level, a war crimes settlement from a legal point of view, not only, as Kandance says, from reparations, but in terms of setting the legalities as to what is a crime and what is not a crime. Because what has happened is that, for example, with the US Civil War, although the North won it, then they imposed Jim Crow laws. So they just continued the same unlawful situation. So I don't want to go on further, but that's sort of what I wanted to say from a legal point of view.
Thank you so much, Alfred, and thank you for your monumental work over the decades. You've done more than anybody I know in my lifetime that I've ever met. You've done some of the greatest work for humanity. Because for me, this is not about black against white. This is against black against racism, black against exploitation, black against oppression, black against murder, black against abuse, black against absolute criminal crimes against humanity. I don't care what color the person may be. We're talking about a whole centuries of the same devilish people murdering our people from time immemorial. And what is sad about it, like you've seen with Dr. King, is that our own people follow suit with absolutely racist, wicked, evil, wicked people, you know, and that's something that has to be said. You know, there's good and bad in all colors, but it cannot be denied. For centuries, we have had a whole group of people. It's the same group of people over and over again who have terrorized us, lynched us, abused us. Absolutely wicked people, you know, and we know who they are. Everybody on this panel knows who they are, you know, they know who they are. And it's time for us to change it. Now, Kandance, you wanna, I can see you like ready to,
Ready.
to voice.
Thank you. Yes, Alfred. Wow, tremendous work. And it must be said that especially because you're white, you know, I mean, we know, everybody on this panel knows, because we all have insight into what really has been happening in our struggle, yeah, for equality, and for justice. So, and we know that there have been white people who have defended us, but not many of them do what you are doing, Alfred, this day, today. So, and yeah, truly, it, you know, I give thanks for that. Yeah, and I give thanks for that on behalf of a lot of us. Yeah, so thank you so much. But what I wanted to say is, I come from I've been working in healthcare, and one of the things that I do is the Sojourner Enterprise, which is about promoting and raising awareness about cultural intelligence to bring about an understanding of diversity, of inclusion, and using those tools of awareness and education to break down racial barriers and bring more equality into the workplace. But in order to do that, there has to be an understanding of racism and a willingness to accept racism, and that the racism exists. Now, these institutions that harvest or nurture this racism actually have it systemically ingrained in them because of what Alfred was talking about, and what many of us on this panel, all of us on this panel, know about, which is the history going back into medieval times and beyond. Okay, they have this, whether it's fear, whatever you, I don't even know what to call it. It has so many names and has so many guises. But I think it comes from a historical place. Yeah, and it is not from Black people. Black people cannot be racist. Racism is something that has come out of the institution. It's come out of the monarchy. It's come out of that imperial army. Yeah, you've all seen recently. There's been this badge that has been exposed now as being, yes, it's the highest order of, it's like a royal honor badge, and it denotes an angel that is stamping on a Black, on an African, on a man of color. Yeah, but that badge is the highest order, the highest honor of a knighthood. Recently, I think a couple of days ago, Michael Palin has called for it to be redesigned. Well, okay, fine, they can try as they might to recreate it, but that ancient order, that ancient mindset is the mindset that has created the racisms that still exist today, that oppress us, that have kept us in slavery, that have denied us our rights in the workplace, in society, voting, that keeps our children disenfranchised, that promotes the guns and the drugs and all of that stuff, that breaks our communities and destroys our families. That it's the same, it's the same thing. And it's not until, so what I'm saying is that the slave trade was so important. The slave trade itself, that whole Holocaust, is the foundation stones that really have the whole systemic racism, that it's what holds it. Yeah. So until these organizations, the Tate and Lyles, the Lloyds, the Greens Wines, and all these companies who invested so heavily and gained so much finance from the slave trade, to build these wonderful institutions and museums and all these things that still exist today, until I mean, they need to be held to account. And I think it should be a financial account. Great that they give apologies, but there needs to be some kind of financial account through a legal process, as Alfred was saying just now. It has to be done through a legal process. All the records are there. They're all in Oxford. All the records are there. We can see almost every single person who owned slaves in this country alone. The records are there. Thank you, UCL, for doing that piece of work. And to me, in terms of looking at and dissecting where we are with racism, and in order to know how best to address it and take it forward, so that we are no longer held in this position, economically, emotionally, financially, spiritually, because they break you. If you can't feed your family, then you become a broken man. If you cannot hold down a job as a woman, you become a broken woman. If you have children to bring up, then that family is broken. We cannot continue to stay in this condition. And until those things are exposed and dissected and bleached out, cleaned out, they're held to account, it's going to continue. That's my contribution.
I don't know if we're allowed to speak straight after, or someone's got to bring us in. I don't know. But if not, on the back of what you were saying, Sister Kandance, I totally and utterly agree with you, especially when you're talking about certain aspects of racism. And I think the first thing what we need to do is have an understanding of what racism is. And I think you kind of touched on it in the sense of racism is prejudice and discrimination, but with the power to carry it out on a particular race, that discrimination, and that you've got the power to do that. And then you have systemic racism, which, as we know, is the structural systems that they set up and the procedures and processes what they put in place to disadvantage a certain race. And then you go on to institutionalized racism. So that systemic structure.
Move your paper out the way. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, that's his. Yeah, I have that there because I would forget certain bits on the cover. That's me. Because I ramble on. Yeah, yeah. That systemic structure is the one where after that you've got the institutionalized racism, which is in the schools, the police force, the hospitals. You know, at the Macpherson report couldn't have done a greater job with saying that most of the system is based on institutionalized racism. I remember that very, very clearly after the Stephen Lawrence inquiry. So if we look at racism as a whole, it's a total system structure that functions in all areas of society, from economics, education, entertainment, and law, labor, religion, sex, politicians, and I can go on and on and on. So you have people will say, well, it's not really in the entertainment because black people are always singing, dancing and up there. But if you look at people like Sister Sevens and Sister Sophia Stewart, and I think it's Natalie that came on, Sister Natalie, their experience is very different from other people I know that had their intellectual property and put it forward, and they've made billions and millions and gone forth. It's very, very different. And when we talk about the institutional racism, very rarely do we bring in the entertainment side, because we see the Michael Jacksons and we see, you know, certain ones what we're known for. But it is a system that is systemic, is set up, and going back to what you're saying, it's about us kind of breaking it down, but it's not for us to break it down, because we've been trying for over 500 years. You know, we've been trying to break down a system that's set up by the so-called people that think they have the power to do what they will when they want to do it. So it's not for us, it's for them to realize, look, you have to stop this foolishness, because we've been trying. You know, the only other way is that we all get taken out. But it goes back to them doing it, them accepting responsibility. I remember in 2015, I think it was, when Cameron went to Jamaica, and he said he wasn't going to apologize for slavery. He made it very clear when he met with some of the Caribbean community. He said that was in the past. And in terms of reparations, we're not going to give you reparations. We're not going to talk about that. But what we will do is give you money to set up a prison where it can house people from Jamaica that we deport there. So in all of it, it's the cheekiness, the feistiness, the disrespect that really, really gets to me. So we can talk all we want and sing the "We Shall Overcome" someday, but let's overcome today. Do you understand what I'm saying? So for me, it's breaking down the barriers. I went into education as a teacher, and as I reached up the ranks in education, and I took on special needs solely to break down the exclusions of black children being disproportionately excluded, being disproportionately put on the special educational needs register, and no one did a thing about it. I became a consultant, educational consultant from the Home Office, educated mainly white head teachers on how to raise achievement of black children and detach from the racism and the stereotypes and so forth. And I said, bring in actually a Pan-Africanist group called our Kabila, Brother Leader Mandaka, to do that specific part. And the defense, because they just didn't want to hear the truth, even though their data showed the reality of the disproportionality of it all.
This is why it has to be, as Alfred was saying, it has to be done from a legal standpoint. You know, it has to be done on that scale, because, you know, we can march and we can bang drum and we can petition till kingdom come. Those are only components to add. You see, we can no longer just march and something will be done. Yeah. Now it has to be a lot of very different elements have to come into it that all come together to form a legal case. Exactly. And that is when the pressure, that's when it becomes undeniable. And the good thing, the good thing that I think that is in our, that one of the good things that is in our favor with this fight that we are going to have with them, and that we've started having, is when they do make apologies. Yeah, because when they do make apologies, even if they say, and I'm not going to apologize for they have actually acknowledged it, and you can draw them on that, because that's what the legal system is. But I'm saying,
what kind? You have to understand the nature of the beast.
Yeah,
they're saying straight, we're not going to apologize.
Yes.
Give reparations. There's nothing stopping them from giving reparations. They've done it to everybody. They've given it to everybody else.
So I want to come in there because there was, I think it might have even been people wanted to apologize. It was the UK that was obstructing a public apology from the EU. And I want to bring in some information now, just to illustrate what you're talking about. Then I want to hear from Clive and Stephen, and also Natalie. I'm still trying to get Lawrence to come back, but I want to share the screen, if I may, and just show you some information. The first thing I want to show you, then we can have that as a talking point and then come back. So if I might, let me just line it up a little bit. Yes, so if I can share the screen. Alfred, is it okay that I share the screen? Please. Okay, is that okay? Okay, thank you. So, right. We should have the screen shared. I don't know why it's not sharing.
It's black. It's going to come up. It says it started sharing, so give it a moment. It may connect.
All right, it's just going round for me. It's going round.
Is it the document that you showed me earlier on? Is it that same link?